Hello, welcome to Thursday edition of FreightWaves Now. Happy first day of spring. We are here to bring you some disruptive weather conditions, nevertheless, with Chief Meteorologist, easy for me to say, Nick Austin, and market expert Jesse Cohen is going to be bringing us a little bit of a deeper dive, a little bit more of an education into air cargo. So hello, Nick.
Hello, Chad.
What's happening around the U.S.?
How you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, thank you.
Got a couple of areas of disruption, and as you mentioned, it's the first full day of spring, but it's still March, so it's not unusual that it is snowing in the Rockies. And there are some areas of heavy snow out there today, actually. Not the Denver area, but southwestern Colorado into New Mexico, the San Juan Mountains, some areas of I-40 going around Santa Fe, New Mexico, going to be affected by that snow today, as well as some of those higher elevation mountain passes, and up in the Wasatch Mountains in Utah as well, which is just east of Salt Lake City, that big mountain range there, and other parts of Utah too in the high elevation. So that's where the heavy snow is falling out west. So there'll be some problems in Utah too, maybe going through parts of I-70.
Okay.
So
watch out for disruptive.
Watch out for that.
Yes.
We'll move over to the East Coast. So we see a big area of rain, right? Usually no big deal, but this rain tonight is going to be sliding further up into New England, but for interior portions of New England, from Maine all the way down in upstate New York and even the Pocono Mountains in northeast Pennsylvania, that rain will be changing to heavy snowfall. And it's going to keep snowing in those areas during the day on Friday, and the winds are going to pick up too. Not a major blizzard, but the winds could get strong enough to classify this storm as a blizzard from tomorrow into the early part of Saturday. So that could spell trouble for interior parts of the Northeast.
Okay.
Yeah. One more thing I want to mention too, because there's still flooding in the Midwest. And other states in the Midwest and also in parts of the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, in recent weeks have had severe weather events. It's not just the flooding in the Midwest. So for the carriers who haven't heard the news yet, yesterday, the Federal Motor Carriers Safety Administration did declare a, I'll say they issued a regional emergency declaration for 16 states that have had severe, major severe weather events in recent weeks.
Wow.
Which essentially means that drivers are exempt from certain regulations, I believe including hours of service.
Whoa.
So that they can help with emergency relief response in those areas, in those 16 specific states. So, folks can go online and get details about that and see the list of the states that are in that declaration.
All right, thanks for that update.
You bet.
And a relief from HOS. Boy, that's some news. Okay. Jesse Cohen, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Chad. It's great to be here.
Great.
With this very mild Chattanooga weather today.
Yes.
So yesterday in our FreightWaves Now segment, we talked a little bit about the Boeing 37 MAX grounding and the impact that would have on cargo. We found that there really isn't that much cargo that's moved on there. But today we're going to talk about on these very big screens where the big cargo volumes are moved. And when we talk about big cargo volumes, we have to start with freighter aircraft. And we've got a couple of nice pictures here. This is a 747. I'm not sure whether it's an 800 freighter or a 400 freighter, but it's nose loading a very, very long piece of cargo with the nose up position there. And then here we're loading on the main deck another large piece of cargo. Could be looks like a 777 aircraft. But in any event, what we've got here, looking at data from the U.S. Department of Transportation, are the primary airplanes that are used to fly international cargo in and out of the United States. And we've got in the yellow, the gold is sort of the average, the round trip average. The blue line represents the volumes imported into the US. The red line is the volumes exported out of the US. And here we have our fleet types. The Boeing 747-8 is the largest freighter airplane in scheduled service, followed by the Boeing 747-400 and the 777 freighter and the MD-11. Those are the big guys. And then you have other airlines, smaller airlines, and carriers like Federal Express and UPS operating in with some of those aircraft. But here we can see 747s are carrying up to 200,000, over 200,000 pounds. And really, I think part of the takeaway here is, this really reflects that large blue line, which is evident pretty much in all of these fleet types. It shows you how much cargo is coming into the US. And that really sets up a trucking, where the trucking opportunity is you probably have more opportunity to truck from the airport to final destination versus trucking from an origin into that airport. There is two-way cargo, but it's more balanced coming into the U.S. and would require support from truckers out of airports. So moving on to the next slide. This really gets to the second set, shown really in a similar way, but these are passenger flights. It's a different scale, and I'll combine them in a minute. But again, we have volumes coming into the U.S., volumes going out of the U.S. in red, and then the average of the two in gold. And here we have 8 or 9 different fleet types. The difference, of course, with passenger aircraft is cargo only goes on the lower deck. Here we have a couple of examples of American wide-body and a Delta wide-body loading different types of cargo. The Delta flight is loading containers, and the American flight is loading pallets of cargo. And the interesting thing here, of course, is you can really see, here are the larger airplanes, the Boeing 777-300. That's my favorite cargo airplane. From a passenger perspective, it's up to 30,000 pounds, but in reality, it has the capacity to do much, much more, depending on the passenger load, and then going on down. So here, moving on, when you combine the two, you can get a sense of the whole scale. Freighter business on the left, what we saw on the very first slide, was freighters carrying almost 250,000 pounds in the case of the 747-800 freighter, and down to the passenger flights here on the right that carry 25, 30, down to 15,000 pounds per departure. So I think the takeaway here is, from a trucking perspective, these guys have large volumes in a single pop. A single flight can generate a lot of trucking opportunity, but you don't have that many freighters a week in many, many locations, 2 to 3 a week. In some cases, maybe 5 or 6, depending on the airline and the route. But on the passenger side, much, much smaller opportunity on a per flight basis, but flights are typically scheduled daily, sometimes 10 flights a week, sometimes 14 flights a week, and those flights add up. So when we look at an airport and we look at an opportunity, as we're going to be doing soon with our new Air Cargo Capacity Index, which we expect to release in April, we will be, in Sonar, we will be factoring all of this in. How many freighters are coming into an airport? What kind of freighter? How many passenger flights are coming into an airport? What kind of passenger flights? And looking at all that, multiplying out the frequencies, and we'll get a good picture of how big Chicago is, New York, Atlanta, Miami, and all of the smaller airports.
Jesse, I understand right now that here on the first day of spring, air cargo is a little bit down right now. We've been talking a little bit about how the global economy is slowing, but I've also heard that it might be a little bit seasonal. Can you tell us a little bit about the opportunities in air cargo right now, just in general?
So air cargo right now, there's a little bit of a peak going on in March, typically the end of the first quarter, end of the fiscal year for many companies. They try to eliminate some of their inventories. So over the next several days, over the next 10 or 11 days, we expect to see a little bit of a peak in air cargo in many markets around the world. But right after that, beginning of the second quarter, things will slow down. There's opportunities typically in the perishable side of the business, particularly in the West Coast. But in other areas of the world, you have a little bit of a slowdown and then a build up before Easter, but then right after Easter, it will slow down significantly.
Okay, all right, so that's it. That's the opportunities happening in air cargo. We are developing an index. What's the index called that's about to be out in air cargo, Jesse?
We're going to be calling it the Sonar Air Cargo Capacity Index. Our data science team is working on it, and we look forward to making that official once they're ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is what we are bringing to you, a little bit of education and all things logistics, in this case, air cargo today, and of course the disruptions happening nationally. Thanks for tuning in to FreightWaves. We are here for you each and every day at 4 o'clock. Tune in to us. Check us out at FreightWaves.com and on social media. We will see you tomorrow on Friday, bringing you a little overview of what has happened this week. And in the meantime, don't worry, be happy.